It's funny, you were reading my bio, which I was literally thinking like, oh, I got to talk to my team or my PR team. Like, I need to add like desperate in that bio. And also as an entrepreneur that's desperate to scale kindness and eliminate fear. And I literally just thought that 7 minutes ago when we were doing the intro.
I could see your mind. I could see your mind going as I was reading it, that you were like, that's not what he wants.
Yeah, first of all, great intuition. It was like, I'm fine with it. And for the people that don't know me, it's important to like create context. I get it. I'm agnostic to it. I don't need it. But I definitely am passionate and I'm pumped that you just went there. I really dislike fear, like genuinely. I think it's weaponized. I think parents misuse it. I think the government really misuses it. And I think it leads to a lot of anxiety and a lot of the things that all of us fear in society right now. I think we all fear suicide. I think we all fear, shootings at schools. I think we all fear, the separation we're getting from our neighbors on politics and religion and social issues. I even fear very aggressively the generational warfare that the world is pushing, Gen Z versus boomers. I don't like fear. And so as I built my company out from 0 people, or 2, me and my brother, which was really what it was, to the 2,000 employees we have globally now across the world, I spend most of my time trying to eliminate fear inside my 4 walls. As I've worked with Fortune 500 companies, I've realized fear is a real thing. Reporting, bonus structures, HR, like these are all like real fascinations to me. And so, I just want the world to be happier. And I do think gratitude and accountability are 2 incredible places for the majority of people listening to this podcast that will speed up the process of eliminating their anxiety and making them happier hour by hour, day by day. Accountability is a big one because I think we point fingers too much. It's my boss's fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's my parents' fault with how they've, raised me. And all of them can be grounded in micro truths, but the most macro truth is you're in control. You can go to therapy. You can quit, you can take a financial step back to leave a bad job. You can do a lot of things as a human being, especially, by the way, this is important contextually, Mark, anyone who's listening to this podcast from your or my circles, if you have the time to listen to this podcast, it means you have the capacity for change. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody in a 3rd world country that doesn't have electricity is listening to this podcast. Do you know what I mean? Or access to clean water, which 750 million people on Earth. I'm on the board of Charity Water. 750 million people, Mark, do not have access to clean water on Earth.
Wow.
And we're complaining about our Wi-Fi slow in our apartment, or somebody said a joke and you didn't like it. Like we're really in a place where perspective is being lost. We're looking for headaches. We're looking to get into conflict right now. We're just in this weird spot. And I get it. I'm deeply empathetic. I'm so empathetic that it drives content like gratitude. Like, how about instead of what sucks right now, how about what you're thinking about what's good? Like, I had 4 to 5 things already. It's 1:46 p.m. Eastern right now. I've had 4 to 5 things that a executive of a business could dwell on happen already today. And I just think people complain about dumb shit and they don't lean into gratitude. And gratitude starts with the well-being of the people you love the most, starting with yourself. And so, I talk about gratitude a lot. When I was 10, 11, 12, 13, it's interesting when you said Wine Library, which is the brand I changed it into. So my dad had really a real package store, liquor and beer. I brought a lot of the wine energy to the business by educating myself in my high school years on wine and becoming the wine buyer, the de facto wine buyer, literally while I was still in high school. But it was interesting when you just said propelled you to everything else, which is absolutely true. Where my brain went was selling trading cards, sports cards, in the JCCs and in the malls of New Jersey, the Holiday Inns and the fire stations between the ages of 11 and 14 really propelled me, no bullshit. And really even lemonade and shoveling snow and washing cars. Like, it's really interesting when I think about my career. It really does start at 7. When I did lemonade at 7, 8, 9, 10, I spent more time making signs than I did on making the lemonade. And then in baseball cards, I mean, when you're 12, 13 years old, making $1,000 a weekend in the 80s, you're really like And, you know, this is in hindsight, I was like, oh, I really had it. And by the time I came to my dad's business, when I was 14, Mark, I'll tell you, I had like real subconscious understanding of consumer behavior already. Like I was literally as a freshman in high school, and my dad I lived 45 minutes from the store. The store was in Springfield. I lived in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. We'd ride down 78 from exit 12 to exit 48. And I would spend like when I think now back to the conversations I had with my father, I wish I was recording them. It's really like wild. I don't even know where I got it from. It was such natural instincts. I would talk about like, Dad, do you realize like when people first walk in the store, we can't have these $5 wines hit them when they first walk in. We should put $20 wines there because everyone's grabbing them, and yeah, $20 is less. Not everyone's gonna grab them, but here's the margin. And I changed the way our registers and brought in, like, it was just like, I was talking real stuff, real shopper marketing by the language that everybody here would be listening to. And then obviously, you know, that was 1990. And by the time 1998 rolled around, 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, in between, I had become incredibly knowledgeable about wine. But more importantly, for the argument or the discussion here, I launched a website in 1997, started building it in 96, e-commerce wine retail, which was unheard of. I started an email newsletter, which was really, really early in 1997. That allowed me to outflank the Sherry Lehmans and the Zackies and the Morels, the premium wine stores of New York City, because they were doing catalogs and spending a lot of money on making them and sending them in the mail. And I was getting into people's inboxes in the late 90s with Opus One and Dominus and Chateau Lafite before they were by months at a time back then. And then Google AdWords, right? I bought Google AdWords when they first came out and was able to outflank everybody with intent-based marketing. And then YouTube came along. I started a wine show on YouTube in 2006, February of 2006. And that really propelled me and the business to another stratosphere. And, you know, Wine Library became one of the largest independent wine retailers in America. And I did that in my early 20s, and it became the foundation of how I thought about things, because I knew that I was going to leave my father's business at some point, because I knew that it wasn't mine and he was going to give it to me when he dies. And I'm 47. My dad just turned 70 this 2 weekends ago, and he's healthy as an ox. And, you know, he's going to live to 100, and I didn't want to inherit it at 80, you know? And so, especially because he wasn't paying me anything, Mark. My dad never paid me that much money. And so all my 20s and early 30s, I knew I had to do something for myself at some point, which meant I had to build a brand. I knew that when I left, my dad would go back to his old behaviors, and he has. And I knew that would be at the detriment of the business. So if I built a huge brand, I knew that it would take him more time to decrease the business. But while I was building that brand, every day my dad cared about how much money was coming through the register. So I was trained in sales and brand. And that, as you can imagine, has serviced me incredibly well when in my mid-30s, I entered into the Fortune 500 marketing arena and created a new version of an agency, which I think has done well in caring about short and long-term business results, sales and brand, and not wasting a penny, because that was definitely Sasha Vaynerchuk's biggest fear, that I would do some sort of marketing behavior that returned nothing. And so I got very fortunate that I was trained in the trenches of a family business, but had the natural ability to understand how that translated to Fortune 500 land. And that's been a big factor in our growth. The biggest thing that is holding back all of us, me included, from whatever we want is not recognizing things, not seeing it, right? Like, I didn't realize for 25 years as a manager that my lack of candor, Garyvee, for all of you, is very candorous. It's a strength. Gary Vaynerchuk, the CEO of 2,000 people at VaynerX, struggled with candor, because if I like you, it's harder for me to say something. You know, this is, you know, when you're posting to the world. So you're not talking to anybody specifically. When you're talking to a direct report that you're in the trenches with every day, they become your brother and sister. They become family when you're really about it. And it's sometimes hard to tell them they stink at something, because for me, the number one thing I hate in the world is fear. I hate fear. And a lot of people weaponize fear to get people to do what they want. Politicians, teachers, parents. Fear is weaponized often. I used to think that me telling you, if you were working for me, Dan, like, hey, Dan, you're really like, you're awesome, but like, you're not great at this, this, and this. And like, if you don't fix it, like, this is not gonna work out. I thought when you would walk out that you were scared and that you were like halfway out the door and self-esteem was fucked up. And I didn't know how to find that balance. I've been able to fix that in the last 5 years, and it's changed a lot for my company and my world. I didn't see my lack of candor as a kryptonite. The reason so many people here don't follow easy things is, one, it's not easy for them. I've started to get serious about my health about 10 years ago, and I go to the gym pretty consistently, but to this day, I fucking hate it. Waking up tomorrow and it's gonna rain in New York and the fucking Jets are gonna probably lose tomorrow. And so I'm already in a bad mood, and waking up at like 8 and having to like put in a workout is like the least natural thing. Yet if you told me, Gary, we need to work 98 hours straight on this to solve it, I'd be like, let's start right now. That's easy. So for a lot of people, it doesn't come natural. The reason, Dan, I think for a lot of people, it doesn't come natural is they're chasing the financial part of it. And so by chasing the financial part of it, they don't really like it, which is why they want it to happen faster, which is why they don't follow the work ethic required. I understand that because that's how I lived my life in health and wellness, and that's how I lived my life as a student. I didn't like it, which is why I sucked at it. And there was no thing I could do to fix those two areas. But in business and entrepreneurship, I loved it. It's my life. I'm pure fucking bred entrepreneur. I like the game. And so it comes easy. But I think what I'm hoping is that if people realize in this new internet world that is now mature, that we all live in, they can, instead of chasing the next trend, if they chase a category of passion, something they like, and build a business around that, they're far more likely to pull it off, because when they wake up, they actually want to do it because the thing is interesting, not the shit they get from the thing.
Back in 2019, you led me to a passion project. We were at a sports card convention called the National. 100,000 people there. I just happened to be in Chicago. Gary's there, he's got his booth there. And I come by the card show, and you've got, at the time, like 900 employees. Now you have 2,000. You had like 900 employees. And I watched you buy a sports card for 60 bucks and spend an hour negotiating with someone else to sell it for 100 bucks. So you're gonna make $40 while you have 900 employees back home. And it's burned into my mind. Why? Like, what is so much about the game? Or
because what was $40 fucking dollars in profit's a fucking come up. but I'll let you finish, but I just want to go back. Like, that story's real, and it's completely the follow-up to what I just said. Me buying a sports card for 60 bucks from one booth, walking around for an hour, and then selling it for 100, and making those $40 gets my juices going way more than when VaynerMedia lands a $10 million account, and it's not even fucking close. If you can find that in your actual day-to-day, you will get much further than you can ever imagine, because you'll have the fucking fuel to get it.
So for people out there that are trying to figure out the thing that they like, sports cards and Pokemon, working for an accountant, a lawyer, real estate, selling door-to-door, selling solar, working with these companies, like, how do they find that thing that makes them excited?
You have to taste shit. I texted 7 to 10 people to come by the National in Chicago in 19. You said yes. You had no fucking idea. You just showed up, and then it led to something. The amount of people here that start conversations with no breaks my soul. Most of the best shit that was ever destined to happen in your life, you said no to. We have to, especially this crew, one of the tenors of business or entrepreneurial success is to be in the business of maybe instead of the business of no. If you're in the business of maybe, you spend a little time double clicking into shit. If you're in the business of no, you already lost. There's so many people here, Dan, that say, well, Gary, I say no because I'm saving my time. My time is precious. When their time isn't worth as much as they think. It's fucking ego. Your time's not as valuable as you think. And understanding the power of maybe is humongous. And so the way they all figure it out is by saying maybe which leads them to doing 7 to 20 things or going to 7 to 20 things that they wouldn't have prior. And in one of those 7 to 20 things is the fucking thing. I mean, I think for the OGs in this crowd, call it 42 and above years old, a lot of us in this crowd that are of that age realize that entrepreneurship wasn't in the zeitgeist of popular culture. When I was growing up, there weren't entrepreneurs to look up to. It wasn't a thing. It was all about go to the best college you can get into and go into the corporate game. And so as things evolved with the internet and social media, there was a point where I realized, oh shit, entrepreneurship is now cool. Right. And that was neat, and I thought that was fucking amazing, and I was like in it, and I was like, okay, let's understand what this means. And then over the next 3 to 4 years, it became obvious to me that a lot of people talked about it because it became cool, the way they would talk about sports or being a rapper. Like kids in high school are like, I'm gonna make the league, I'm gonna be in the NBA, or I'm gonna be a famous rapper. That wasn't the way that people talked about being an entrepreneur, but that had started to happen because entrepreneurship became popular culture. It was then that I was like, you know what? There's so much confusion of what it is required to pull this off. And I think for everyone in this, conference, the more you go through it, I don't know where everyone is on their journey, but the more we go through it, the more you realize you can fake it for a while, but it's just not sustainable. And for me, I got lucky because this all didn't happen when I was 17. This all happened when I was in my late 30s. I was already on the back end of putting in the work. The other thing that I desperately wish for everyone here, more than how much money they are able to make, is for them to be happy. And I mean that because everyone here knows unlimited people that have money that are having terrible lives. They're anxious, they've got real issues, and there's nothing good about that. So it became important to me 7, 8, 10 years ago to really do what I could to show that the truth of the matter is that the work is part of the equation, that you aren't looking for the quick way to do it, you're looking for the most sustainable way for you to do it. And really being self-aware and reverse engineering who the fuck you are, and then putting yourself in a position to do that is always gonna lead to the thing that everybody wants. And so, I felt it was in my stomach, and I wanted to put it out there, and I did, and obviously it led to people seeing maybe a different version of it. I'm thrilled when people use me as a proxy of what they want to do or of what they don't want to do. Plenty of people in these circles will come to me and be like, Gary, I don't believe in what you're saying. I'm like, that's amazing. Do you? I don't think I'm right. I think I'm right for me. And I think that means it's right for some of you. And then it means that it's some parts of what I do is right for you. And that's the fucking game, Dan.
But how do you edit the time that you spend on any one thing in a given day?
Surrounding myself with great people because I can afford it now, and intuition. So I have 3 full-time admins, I have 2 chief of staffs. That's a lot of human infrastructure for someone who has a holding company with 8 companies and then many other companies outside of it, and investing vehicles and all this personal life and real life and being a public figure and just speaking and doing a pod like this, I really wanted to do this. And I know you've been incredibly patient, and we've had some stop and starts, and I'm not canceling in August because I want to. It's because I am getting pulled in a million different directions, and there are a lot of fires. And the logic of my infrastructure team is this fire is probably more important than this podcast. That's right. But on the flip side, I'm a human being, and I like you. Obviously, I really like your daughter. She spent some time here, and I want to do this. And so, you're going on a little bit of humanity mixed in with operational excellence, right? You're trying to be efficient. You're using smart people around you, but you're also going on intuition. I do so many meetings that don't look right on paper that 5 years later, you're like, if I didn't take that meeting, it wouldn't have led to this. And so I'm trying to do a little bit of a mix of the gray and the black and white. But most of all, and this is going to be powerful for some people, most of all, the way I actually scale it is by not beating up myself when I realized it wasn't good. What makes me work, Mark, and what makes people like me work. And what I would love to get some of the listeners to start to consider is what actually allows me to play it the way I'm playing it is the lack of judgment when I didn't play it well. Too many people beat themselves up instead of using it as a learning experience. I'm just refining along the way. And
it's
my relationship with myself where I give myself breathing room to be a human that allows me to keep doing things and making them better because I'm tasting different things, because I am taking quote unquote time risk on a daily basis, which makes the learning from the outcome of it, pro or con, a learning that I can build on. Way too many people have lost the work-life balance before it even started because they're gonna be critical on themselves regardless of it, right? It's so hard to balance. And so for me, I just know I'm doing the best that I can. And if I'm doing the best that I can, that in itself has put me in a position to succeed. And some days that means that I have to choose my family time on a Friday night, or Sunday morning, an executive ran into me on Saturday and asked me to meet for coffee and wanted to jam, and I just couldn't. I couldn't because of the family time, right? And so that's the family being chosen. Other times I'm, flying and speaking somewhere or having a big meeting, and I'm missing, some sort of like school function that I don't want to miss. And that's the other way. And the truth is, I just don't beat myself up. All of us are trying the best we can. And so as long as, nothing is glaring, and to me, glaring is the following. My kids have become completely horrible people and have major problems in society, and or I go directly out of business in my businesses. As long as neither one of those are happening, I think it's gonna be okay. And so I think it's how you judge how you're balancing way more than the reality of it. And recognizing that you have a different point of view on it than your partner, than the kids, than your business associates. And I think you need to care about your point of view on it first and foremost, while being empathetic to everybody else's points of view.
Awesome. That's a really good answer. I know that, it's hard to try and not judge what you're doing and stuff like that.
That's the game, right? That's like everybody could be failing at work-life balance if they've decided they're failing at work-life balance.
Okay.
So as long as you're not, as long as your spouse or your partner isn't saying I want to break up or get a divorce, and as long as your kids aren't like eating pine tar, and as long as your banks aren't coming to foreclose your business, you're gonna be okay. And I think people are freaking out. Like, I didn't even see my dad until I was 15, and I love him and we have the best relationship. Like, there are people who've had their fathers walk out on their family and they didn't see him for 15 years, and now they have great relationships because they've reconciled. Like, people are way too judgmental and overanalyzing work-life balance in today's modern PR society. And so if you feel good about it, then you'll win. And I think not judging yourself too harshly, because it is hard to balance everything, because that's life. And I don't aim for perfect. I'm not interested in perfect. It's not real. Perfect is fake. And so I just live.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. It feels better, right? It feels better to look at it that way.
Yeah, I said it's hard, and I said with little kids and stuff, it's like mommy's not here, daddy's not here, and that's kind of all they see. As much as they're involved, it's just kind of hard some days. And
they're tougher than you think. How old are they?
3 and 8.
3 and 8. Tell me anything you remember of being 3. Go.
Not much.
Interesting.
Just being in a hospital. That's
right.
about it.
And you know what? When you really as long as you're counterbalancing it with love, and one of the biggest things, all these parents judging people. Meanwhile, they're around because they work 9 to 5. But if they're not deploying love and are in it from 5 to 9 every night and on the weekend, what are they really accomplishing? Just because you're there doesn't mean you're there.
Right. So do you, when you do have your family, like you said, when you have your family time, you just kind of say, that's family time, and that's kind of non-negotiable. Yeah, and that might be different times, but.
Yes, and sometimes it, most of the time it works out, but sometimes it doesn't, right? Like, sometimes I can get distracted, and I'm just not willing to beat myself up if I decided to go down a rabbit hole for an hour on a Sunday when I should have been all in on the family. That's just gonna happen. Like,
right.
This is about not beating yourself up and knowing where your intent and your efforts are, and also knowing life's a long game. So, in 2-3 years when I'm taking my kids on business trips and traveling with them and showing them the world, like that's where the benefits have come from some of the sacrifices. And I don't know, I think everybody, you know, if they had the option of, would you rather have had your parents around every minute from 1 to 5, but not be able to do all these amazing experiences with them from 11 to 18 versus the alternative? I just have a funny feeling all of us would raise our hand and say, I'll take that 11 to 18 shit. And I plan on dominating that, and some of the sacrifices I have to create between 1 to 8 is something I'm willing to do, and that's my strategy, and I don't give a fuck if some parenting blogger says that I'm not spending enough time with them. Fuck you. One of the, like, this is one thing that I always tell I meet a lot of young agency owners these days, and a lot of them do organic social. And they keep asking me, like, Gary, how do I keep clients better? Or how do I get more clients? Or how do I prove it? This is obviously the other side of the spectrum of the Fortune 500 landscape. And I always ask them, I'm like, well, does your service build their business? And it's fascinating how big of an issue of that question is to most of the kids I talk to. Because most of them will answer honestly with, I don't know. And then I say, well, if you're trying to convince somebody to pay you to grow their business and you don't know, imagine how bad that is. And a lot of times I encourage them to learn about media, because to answer your question, for the Fortune 500 brands that I work with, I tell all of them, hey, if we're gonna do content, brand, creative, your commercials, VaynerMedia has done more Super Bowl commercials in the last 5 years than any creative agency in the world, which is a brain twist to a lot of people because they have me pegged in social media. Meanwhile, I still think social media from a day-to-day standpoint builds more brand than any campaign work that one can actually do. But I tell every retail client, especially retail, more than CPG and others, hey, if you really want to hold us accountable to measure what we're doing for you, give us the media and the creative and we'll show it to you in sales. Because if I have the media and the creative, I can and should be held accountable to sales. If we just have the creative, I tell them I'm at the mercy of how you measure brand. What report, what internal MMMs, or like, how do you do it? Because all of you are doing it in a fluffy way. You've all accepted some sort of MMM, MMA, you know, Nielsen brand lift study, brand score. All of it is fake math. And I have to be at the mercy of how you do that. And I have to reverse engineer into that. But my biggest preference is doing it the way, Mark, they had this industry right for a long time. Media and creative together under one roof. One, as the
one
old
throat
saying
to
goes,
choke.
one throat to choke.
Yeah.
And like, we as an agency want that accountability. I'd rather get fired for us falling short with full control than being fired for a subjective opinion that they didn't like the video we made, or if it's not on brand, or the way we spent their media is like on low cost impressions, that's a fake KPI. So, you know, I think we're very good at talking business, marketing, in a world where I think people are doing marketing for the sake of marketing.
So oftentimes people have like a goal number. They're like, once I make 100 grand a year, or I make 250 a year, or once I buy the house, or once I make $1 million a year, once I make 2 million, but the goalpost always moves. What are your thoughts about when people have these numbers or these goals in their mind for that financial gain?
I think this is a self-awareness game. I think for some people here, those goals really work. For me, I just made up something when I was 12 that was so big that it allowed me to play forever. Buy the Jets, right? And so,
Are you gonna buy the Jets?
Am I gonna buy the New York Jets? Yeah, I think I am. But, you know, when I clip this in 40 years, when I don't buy them and have to explain what the fuck happened, I won't be upset, because I am focused on what I can control, build the biggest and most sustainable and best and healthiest businesses I can to put me in a position that if the serendipity of the world and the timing and the stars align, that at a time when I can actually afford it, which would not be tomorrow. If tomorrow they're for sale, it's unlikely I get them. I may get a tiny, tiny piece because whoever got it is probably smart enough to realize me getting a little piece is probably a good arbitrage.
For sure.
But that will crush me in my competitive spirit of trying it. But if I don't get them, that'll be fine, chasing them has been the great joy of my life. And that's what I want for everyone, where the process is enjoyable. I think a lot of people struggle with goals. When they hit it, it's so empty. They're like, fuck. Like getting to 1 million or 100,000 or whatever it is, like they feel empty. I'm sure many people here have achieved something that they can think back now as like, fuck, it wasn't as good as I thought. Because the ideology of the thing was what they put on a pedestal, not the day-to-day game of trying to get to the thing. And so when I'm at a conference like this with all the other incredible speakers you've got lined up, and I think about like, what could we touch on in this talk that might bring value, that might not be touched on, I just don't think, Dan, people put enough energy on enjoying it. It's like winning at all costs is fine, but not at your cost. You know, it's just not. And at 47 years old and being around the game for a long time now and knowing how many people got to the top of the mountain on paper and lost their lives, their loved ones, lost everything once they got there because of how they got there, like all the shit, all the fucking shit that comes along with it. I don't want that for a single fucking person at this conference.
I'm gonna open a sports card store in the middle of a shutdown. I'm gonna open up acai bowl locations, or I'm gonna throw a humongous event. They have these ostentatious ideas and they're finally excited to do it and their friends don't support them. What are your thoughts about the people around them?
That's the best. The greatest thing in the world for an entrepreneur is sticking it to their fucking friends. I got nothing else to fucking say about that. Honestly, I never get mad at anyone. Not my friends, not my competitors, not people that troll me, I'm empathetic. People are going through their shit. If your friends don't support you, it's because they can't see them doing it, understood. It's because they're unhappy and they're starting to develop a little envy and jealousy of you, not because they don't love you anymore or they're not your homie, they're just not in a good place. I think too many of us that are succeeding are not doing a good enough job bringing our friends along from a place of empathy, compassion, and sympathy. Don't be mad at them, have compassion for them.
So,
you know what I mean? I think a lot of us know what we mean, right? We're like, no, fuck Don, he's fucking jealous, motherfucker. Don, your boy that you grew up with, is just in a tough spot right now. Deep down, he's super pumped for you. He's just not in a good place. You need to fucking be double friend, not cut them off.
So someone's out there, they're listening to you. They've been listening for years and they're finally ready. They're gonna post multiple times a day. They're building their following. They hit 10,000 followers. They're excited. And then they start to see 5 trolls a day, 12 comments a day. You're ugly, you're rude, you're stupid, that's dumb, blah, 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 blah. How do you say to deal with trolls and haters?
Yeah, I mean, we just touched on it. Honestly, once and for all, because I know a lot of you on your journeys will have public, lives. Genuinely, stick with me on this for 2 seconds. Imagine living a life where right now on this Saturday morning, afternoon around this country, you're laying at home and you're going through your Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and you're looking to hurt someone else's feelings. You're literally going through it to you're looking to get triggered or upset to then leave a comment to then hurt that person. Think about how sad that life is. Honestly, I mean it. I'm not making fun of that person. I'm deeply empathetic to that person. Think about how fucking sad that life is. That you're not in the business of building something. You're in the business of walking around the internet trying to tear something down. I really, really, really hope that this hits even one person here, that starting this moment from now on, when someone says you're ugly or stupid or full of shit or suck, that you don't start to feel bad for yourself. You start feeling sad for them. Please get on this fucking train, because it will be good for you and it will make you a better person for them. Dan, literally, I am always consuming because I want to know what's going on. The only time I ever feel compelled to say something is not, and I disagree or see the world differently than a lot of people posting. I'm not compelled to razz that person. The only time I'm doing anything is usually DMing people in this room saying, keep going, right? Like I'm trying to give love because I'm happy inside. What we do publicly is a complete reflection of what's going on inside. The only time I feel compelled to do something is to tell one of y'all, keep fucking going, you're not far.
Sitting right next to that person that did listen to you is the one that didn't. And they say to you, I don't need social media. I don't need a personal brand. What'd you say to them?
Cool. There's unlimited people fucking winning. I know unlimited people with monster businesses, super happy lives, and they're not on social. Mazel tov. Good. On the flip side, there's a lot of people that leave opportunity on the table without realizing, friends, social media is free distribution. Of course you can run paid, I get it. But it is the only platform in the world that you can reach millions of audience without paying for it. Do you know how fucking insane that is? You can't run a newspaper ad for free. You can't run a television commercial for free. You can't buy Google AdWords for free. You can do SEO, which is true, which is why it was a monster. But the fact that social, and especially with the TikTokification of everything, is free, it's insane. It's so insane that I'm just finishing up wrapping the follow-up to Jab, 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 Right Hook. Thank you. Originally it was called Jab, 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 Left Hook, which I liked, but as I was writing it, which is the thesis I have on where we are right now in the current state of the internet and attention, I changed the title of the book, and now it's going to be called Day Trading Attention. And for everyone here, the number one thing that they're actually in need of doing is day trading attention. Social is an incredible place to do it. Influencers is an incredible way to do it. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it is the macro thesis, Dan. When you're opening up locations, right, for acai or sports cards, or for donuts, like gentlemen I met, or anything that anyone's doing here, at the end of the day, before anyone's gonna buy anything from you, they need to know about it. And for me, social media is disproportionate on this day in 2023, the biggest opportunity for time and effort and money against outcome on the other side. So when people say, I'm not gonna do it or I don't need it, I'm very empathetic to that. There's many ways to win. This isn't the only way. It just happens to be the way, especially for someone starting at zero, the most opportunistic way today. The same way that if I was writing books when I was building Wine Library for my dad, I would have talked about search, because SEO in 2000 was bananas. Right. And so there's always an ARB. And so I don't think anyone should do anything other than be a kind person. But as far as entrepreneurship, like, I'm not hurt. I didn't invent social media. Social media is not my fucking brother. I don't give a fuck. I just think there's an opportunity.